Ich lass mich heute Abend blicken, ich komm gut geschmückt in den Laden geritten. Alle tanzen, die Damen sind echt entzückend, ganzes Backblech voller Sahne.
Hey, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a loyal viewer. I'm Kerry, the nosy housefrau. That's Willow behind me. It's officially cold in Ohio. It's chilly. I might put the heat on tonight. I don't know if it gets too much chillier. And I'm a polar bear. I like the sweater weather. But sorry if Willa sounds a little bit like a wheezy espresso machine. She's fallen asleep, as you can see. She's my converted feral, which someday I'll have to share that story. It's amazing that she's such a loving critter. But she does need to see a vet, and she's quite the Houdini when it comes to getting her in the carrier. She's broken out of everything. So anyway, moving right along. I did my palette giveaway. I'll link that below if you're not entered and you'd be interested in entering. It's going to be announced next Friday. This is my response to the Manny MUA wake-up call video. I actually started watching it a few days ago, and I stopped 3 minutes and 39 seconds in or so because I was just getting frustrated, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I knew it was going to be good when it started out with Manny saying, I'm just like, burying his face in his hands. And I was like, and then he was like, and I was like, and the video, it's formatted so poorly. I think the editing is so poor. I tried to overlook the fact that I think Manny's trying to do a better without you, living my best life, I'll beat you at your own game kind of thing, possibly. And it doesn't come across well to me. It's like you should never copy something your enemies are doing and be like, I'm going to do this better than you. You have to be careful about how you do that, I think. But putting all of that aside, I wanted to be as objective as I could be. I certainly don't hate Manny MUA. I don't find myself very invested in all of the problems and conflicts that the people in the beauty community have. So I figure if I don't hate him, maybe I'll watch this and like him. I could get myself to like him. But I watched the rest today. It was much easier for me to watch. But by the end, I liked him less. And I'll explain why. Again, I don't hate the guy. It's not that deep for me. These people aren't keeping my lights on. They don't care. As long as we're talking about them, I guess we're doing them a favor, right? Well, it starts out with Manny MUA talking to, I guess Anthony is the manager. But the editing and the formatting of this was so poor. Yes, it had the piano music. We've seen this before. But aside from the horrible start of him just, rubbing his face in his hands, it's a weird place to start. There were no really direct questions. It was disjointed. It didn't press him for any details. And it was supposed to be this candid thing where this guy follows him around for a week and he's going to give these unedited, unprepared answers because supposedly, remember, he wasn't going to know the questions. And so he would give these unprepared answers. Nothing was more edited than Manny MUA's answers. So it starts out with these cards coming up on the screen that are supposed to be from Anthony, but for some reason he's put them in quotations. And you wouldn't do that if you're talking directly to somebody, even through a card. You don't need to put quotations around your own message. You're not quoting yourself. What is that? Hailed a triumph from the Chicago Tribune. He would just put something up there, dash Anthony. That was, to me, was awkward. Again, just something you could overlook if the message is good. But the message wasn't good. It was Manny MUA's parents coming in, because nobody's going to be as objective as parents about their own child. And they start talking about how they just wish Manny would communicate more. And it was very clear to me that they felt Manny was in the wrong about nothing, but that he was just a victim. And his main crime to them was that he was just too darn good-hearted. Who could expect parents to say that? I did notice it came up that the father mentioned that they weren't so close when he was a teenager and he was coming out, and that people said that later he says people said they only work for him or accept him as a gay son because he makes money, and nothing could be further from the truth. I don't think they only accept their son because of money. Of course not. They love him. But what's this I hear about they weren't so close when he was coming out? I don't know the history there, but that sounded to me like maybe there was some, I don't know, religious stuff maybe, right? Or they were just uptight about it. Am I misreading that? I have never heard Manny's coming out story, so I don't know. If you guys know, fill me in the comments. Did I read that wrong, or was there tension there when he came out? Because I have to tell you, I think very little of parents who don't accept their gay children. Shame on anybody who doesn't accept their gay child just because they're gay. You're a disgrace to parenthood. That's my feeling about that. So, moving right along, I don't even know if I'm right about that, but they seem to be a close, loving family. Good for them. I felt that it was a manipulation to show me his parents and how much they love him, and his mother saying, Manny lives in a fishbowl. So everybody's friendships end, but Manny lives in a fishbowl. And it just felt like they were kind of buying into that fame thing very much. They're all very impressed with Manny's fame. Good for you. But I think there's more to it than that. And then there's a card that came up on the screen of Manny saying, I'm very personal, but I'm ready to talk about this. Well, regarding his struggles with anxiety. Well, he has talked about this before. And then he starts talking, his parents are saying again how he's just such a great guy. But he says prior to this, was I a shitty friend? Yes. Did I do bad things? Yes, I did. Well, what things? He says he's reached out to some people personally. Some people accepted his apology, some people didn't. But he has reached out to people because he feels he's in a place where he needs to apologize to people. It was like a 12-step thing. He's in a phase where he's apologizing. He never says what he's apologizing for. If we're all to understand that he's turned over this new leaf, then I think he should acknowledge what it is that he feels he did wrong. And it shouldn't be, well, I just wasn't communicative enough. He said something that I thought was a little telling. He said, I told people if I do something wrong, you should tell me. Like he said, he wasn't a good friend to a lot of people, not just one or two. A lot. He said many people got hurt. So he wasn't a good friend to a lot of people. How did they get hurt? What are you doing? I've seen people like this before. If this is the same thing, when somebody says, well, if I do something wrong, tell me. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. The problem is you're supposed to try and be good to people. You're not supposed to wait and have them tell you, by the way, you never respond to people, you are glib, whatever it is that's going on. You don't get back on text, you're self-serving, you're all of these things. Don't just go, oh, I'm just going to shirk the responsibility of being good to my friends. If I'm not being a good friend, you should tell me. How about ask yourself if you're being a good friend? Ask yourself and be able to tell if you are being good to the people around you. I feel like the whole beauty thing gets in the middle of everything, the ambition, the money, everything, and then if you're only friends with people because you need them, then they have to remind you to be a friend, I guess. If you are genuine with people, if you like people, you're going to find they don't have to come to you and tell you what you're doing wrong because you're going to be doing a lot right. So don't wait for people to tell you you're a bad friend. Be proactive about being good to people. And that means having them have value to you. The other thing I noticed in this video is he talked about how he had over-medicated or had medicated himself, self-medicated, and taken a lot of Xanax. And even he starts to say, even in my reality check video, and doesn't quite finish and saying I was, zonked out. He said people said he seemed so removed in those videos, and that was why. And finally, after all of this depression, he said, I need to feel things again. And he lowered the dose or whatever he did. I have to tell you, I see no difference in his behavior in this video. I think he's every bit as removed and terrified looking and just kind of not fully there. That was my impression about it. I wrote this down because when the video starts out, Anthony, who's talking to them, says to him, what do you want to see and what do you want the next two videos to be? And in his response, he says, me explaining myself more, which, I mean, out of all the things you edit, why wouldn't you edit that? Why do you have to constantly explain yourself? And he kept saying, I was upset for 3 weeks after. He would say things like that. And you're like, 3 weeks after what? Fill in the W's. Just being vague and saying, no, I wasn't always a good friend. I feel terrible. I have anxiety. That just bothered me. So here's what he said. I had to stop the thing and write it down because I knew when I was listening to him that there wasn't a whole sentence there. This is verbatim what he said. He says, like more of me explaining myself, showing how good it's been for me to be off camera. Sorry. Here's where the actual quote starts. Because of the fact that I did fail, I was able to humble myself. And I was like, what these are things that are going on. These are things that I find important. These are things that I should not find important. As important as I did, that was really important to me. I had to go back and read it again. It's in the beginning if you want to see it for yourself. I can read my own writing here. He goes on to say, so he says, that was really important to me. I should not find as important as I did. That was really important to me, was to, figure out what meant something to me. Like, what was like my thing? Like, why was I not living like a Manny life? And I was only living this Manny MUA life, All my focus was in that. Out of all the things you could have edited, I would have said that didn't make him look very good. It was like this run-on stream of consciousness. Why was it? And talking about himself in the third person. Why wasn't I living a Manny life? Why was I living in a Manny MUA life? It just sounded a little bit like, who is Mango? Where did Manny come from? Manny MUA, International Man of Mystery. So he goes on to say that he had self-medicated and that, he was, in fact, feeling better. His mother said, this was something interesting that his mother said. They're driving along and she says, it's easier to jump on the bandwagon than to, what did she say? Yeah, it's easier to jump on the bandwagon than to stick up for what's right. Easier for whom? I can't think of anything more difficult than saying, I'm just going to surrender my feelings about something and I'm just going to go with the crowd, which means now I have to lie. Now I have to cover up who I am. Now I have to go along with something that's uncomfortable for me. There's nothing easier in this world than being yourself. So I wouldn't say it's easier to jump on the bandwagon. It's probably tempting for people who are bloop, bloop, idiots, we'll say. That's probably tempting for people who care about that. Manny MUA also said in this video that he felt that people who collab are always doing a little bit of social climbing, but they don't mean to. And I think that was very telling too. I think he has a hard time telling the difference between when you're social climbing and when you're just growing your channel. Maybe if he was able to create a distinction, he'd know that when people say social climbing, they don't mean just trying to grow your channel, just trying to collab with someone. Social climbing is about putting out a persona that is not you, liking people you may not like, or globbing on to people, doing things that are unethical to further your goals of reaching for that brass ring of YouTube, that elusive YouTube fame that some people will do anything for. And so that's kind of an important distinction. So he may know that, but just may not, he may have like success guilt. I can't explain it, but he's just, the thing that was so cringy for me is that he said he wasn't trying to better his reputation with this. He's not trying to improve the way people see him. Well, that's bull. And if that's not true, then you are definitely just doing this for money and views. You're definitely trying to outdo your ex-friends, and you're doing it by imitating them. I just think this was a horrible idea. Whoever advised him to do this, it was a horrible idea. I absolutely do think Manny suffers from anxiety, and I don't think this was better for him. But the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking, what is so earth-shattering in this person's life in terms, and I'm not talking about the anxiety. I'm talking about what they say was a catalyst for this anxiety. It happened. It was 3 weeks after. 3 weeks after what? They don't say. I'm assuming it was the original. I'm assuming it was when that whole thing broke with the finger and the, Gabrielle and all of that stuff. I'm assuming that's what they're saying caused this anxiety. But when you have almost 5 million viewers, and yes, he did lose a ton of viewers, but he still had a ton of support. He had a landslide of fans, right? And support and everything. It just seems like his parents would say, you know what, this isn't good for you. If this means too much for you, if you care too much about what a few detractors are saying compared to all the success you have, then you're not living your life right. I personally, I would want my child to look at the bright side of things as much as they could. And if they couldn't, I would make sure they were getting the right care and not over medicating and not filming when they're zonked out on Xanax or something. You're right. They're all living there close together. And I feel like a lot of it is making excuses and for things that he needs to face. He was like, I was sweeping things. Remember in his other video, he's like, I was sweeping things under the rug. I was doing this and I was doing that. He always talks about his poor behavior long after the fact and in very vague terms. So it's not really clear to me if he's actually taking ownership. I hear that so often, taking ownership and owning something. You can't take ownership of something you're not even willing to say out loud. You can't, just say, well, I apologize to these people in private. I think the burning question for everybody watching this is, what is it that he is really suffering from in terms of his career? I'm not sure he knows. I think he's upset about losing subs. But I think that he's trying to turn everything around and snub his nose at Geoffrey and his ex-friends and say, look how much better I am without you. I'm doing just as well. He'll make money off of this, right? He's getting views off of it. I just think it's going to backfire on his reputation because by the end of it, I was so annoyed that he hadn't really said anything real. All they had attempted to do for the full video was garner sympathy for Manny. He even says at the end, maybe these drama channels are not, trying to just hate on me. Maybe they're trying to tell me something. And I just felt like that was blowing sunshine up the arse of drama channels so that we could say, wow, gee, that's swell of you, Manny, to be able to look at it that way. Now, you could say, wow, Manny can't say anything right by you because here he said drama channels are trying to help him and he's trying to do right and he can't do right by you. Well, that wouldn't have been the case if this entire video wasn't about his pain and not addressing anything directly. I mean, if he really has an open mind about what drama channels say to him, great. And I have some advice for him. Don't listen to the people giving you advice. This was a terrible idea, this series. You could have sat down and said things yourself. Some of the things you said wound up on cards in the video, and you could have said them directly to the camera. I think that there should have been no editing in his responses. Leave the ums and ahs in and everything and just have it be, this is my off-the-cuff generic response, and trust yourself to give a good response. If you have to put it in an edit, refilm that segment or, put in a slight edit. But there were times where it was like 3 edits in the same 2 sentences. Like in one sentence, I noticed there were like 2 chop-offs of like, what did he say that had to be taken out of there to make this look so much better? I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking about the editing, but I have to tell you, if he's really listening to these channels, that's great. Him giving this huge apology to Karina was a little lost on me because I didn't know what the drama was there, but apparently there was ugliness, and he's choosing now all of this time later to apologize to her. He doesn't say, I don't think he says if he reached out to her personally. He did say he reached out to some people, and some people answered, some people didn't. So I thought that was interesting that he was apologizing to her all of this time later. When it came to Geoffrey, they asked the mom about Geoffrey, not him, and said, it's kind of a mystery, Manny doesn't know, or you don't know why they're not friends. And they left it a mystery. They didn't say what they do know and don't know about that friendship ending. They put a picture of Geoffrey up there. They talked a little about Geoffrey, but never really say anything of substance that sheds any light on what happened there, in my opinion. So overall, the Manny wake up call was a snooze fest for me. Sorry, fans. If you watched this far, I really do appreciate you. Um, I probably will watch the rest the next one and comment on it because I thought there were some things to say about this one, and I'm curious to see if anything changes in that. So let me know your thoughts on them. Leave them below. You guys are always better at this than I am anyway, so I really appreciate that. I appreciate your input, and I've enjoyed reading every single one of your comments. Um, I think a lot of you should vlog, but I've said that before. Anyway, I will see you next time. As always, I don't speak for everyone, just everyone who wants to be right. So saith a housefrau.